Good evening. I'd like to call to order the study session for May 4th, 2026. It is Star Wars Day, so may the 4th be with you. And also, and probably more importantly, especially for our guests tonight, it's International Firefighters Day, I believe. So welcome to all of our firefighters and first responders today. And it's a pleasure to have all of you here. And we really appreciate your guys' service for what you guys do to the community. So thank you. We have two, or really one agenda item, but we're going to break it into two tonight. We have West Metro Fire here and Arvada Fire Protection Districts here to give us some updates and answer some questions for us. So we'll start tonight with West Metro. Typically, we start with questions and comments from the public. I don't believe we have anybody signed up either online or in the chamber, so we'll jump right in with our first agenda item, which is our West Metro Fire presentation, and we'll jump right over to Chief Metz.
Okay. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here and representing West Metro. My name is Jeremy Metz. I'm the fire chief at West Metro Fire Rescue. And just really honored to be here to be able to talk in front of you all tonight. So I do want to make a couple of quick introductions. Is the mic coming over okay and everything? Or all right. Make a couple of quick introductions of some folks that are here with us tonight. I have a couple of our board members. So I have our Vice President, Carolyn Wolfram. She's in our Board District 5. You may recognize her. She's also is the Special District Representative on your Urban Renewal Authority. So Carolyn serves on those in that capacity as well for several of our municipalities. And then we have board member Stephen Hare, who's in Board District 2. He actually does cover Wheat Ridge in his board district. I also have Captain at West Metro Fire Rescue, Mike Mulcahy, to my right. He is also the president of our Professional Firefighters Association, and happy to be sitting next to him as a labor leader in our organization. And finally, I have Lene Hansen, who's working with us as a consultant on this kind of revenue stabilization space. So she's back there as well. So yeah, again, thank you for having me. I'm just gonna jump in. I do have a good amount of slides tonight, so I want to make sure that give a good time for our partners at Arvada, of course, and questions and answers. So I just first want to start with our mission statement, and because I think it's important for kind of to represent who West Metro Fire Rescue is. We're committed, and we really consider ourselves a family. Our fire service family, we're committed to protecting the community's quality of life through prevention, preparedness, all hazard emergency response. Our vision is that we endeavor to be a high quality, and hopefully I show you some examples of that tonight, high quality, responsive, adaptive, learning organization, anticipating and responding to our evolving community needs. And we're trying to do that. We're trying to adapt to situations all the time in this fire and emergency services space. And, very proud of these values that we represent, be respectful, resourceful, and responsible. The resourceful is, again, I hope to talk a little bit more about that today to prove that we've been doing that to the best of our efforts. And, we're kind of running into some challenges that we want to talk to you about. So a little bit about our district. West Metro covers 108 square miles, predominantly in Jefferson County, but we have a little part in Douglas County as well. Municipalities that we cover, that we serve, is Lakewood, kind of going largest to smallest of municipalities. Lakewood, Wheat Ridge, of course, you all here, Edgewater, Mountain View, Lakeside, Morrison, and Roxborough being in Douglas County. We're also very unique in that we have two federal contracts is almost really unique in Colorado, and we're really one of the only fire districts in Colorado that has these contracts. The Denver Federal Center, surrounding Lakewood, and National Laboratory of the Rockies. I always have to pause on that, formerly known as National Renewable Energy Laboratory, but National Laboratory of the Rockies. So, that's kind of a little perspective, and you can see on the map there kind of how those are our director districts, our board of directors, how they're organized. A couple of our board members represented here tonight. Also want to spend just a little bit of time and, just kind of talk a little bit more about special districts in Colorado. We are a special district, fire protection district, of course. And being a special district, we're Title 32 special district. There's about 3,600 special districts in Colorado. You're seeing a lot of your, services and communities provided by special districts: water, sanitation, parks and rec, libraries. There's kind of a long list, but obviously what's important to me while I'm here for you representing being a fire protection district. And we're the second largest fire protection district in the state. Our friends at South Metro got us beat by a little bit, but being a large fire district, special district in the state of Colorado, kind of presents some unique challenges. It's kind of there's a column of, we're independent, we have independently elected board of directors, and that's what they concentrate on. They concentrate on our governance of us being a high-performing fire protection district. But as you know, I don't come to you all as a municipality and say, hey, I really need some IT support or human resources support. We really bear that all on our own. We're our own form of government. We have our own human resources, our own finance division, IT, fleet maintenance division, facilities maintenance, and of course, all of our members work in there. So it's special districts, are this very widely used in the state of Colorado, providing all types of services for our community. The main funding source for special districts is property tax. So for us at West Metro, that is about 75% of our overall revenue is through property tax. And we'll kind of go through some of the legislative changes that really kind of impacted, some of these challenges that we're seeing. A little bit about our history real quick. Wheat Ridge kind of got like Lakewood, and Bancroft was another fire district that we merged with. Wheat Ridge dates back to like the 20s or 30s, 1930s. So a lot of longstanding history there with Wheat Ridge Fire Department, Fire District. But West Metro generally, essentially, is just it's a combination of mergers throughout the years. Really kind of the main ones were between the Lakewood Fire Department and Bancroft Fire Department between 1991 and 1995. I'm just going to kind of, skip through a lot of this, talk a little bit more about the Wheat Ridge merger. That was in 2016. Really, I was heavily involved in that time with the merger between the membership of Wheat Ridge Fire Department. I always just want to tell you all, if you're, were around at that time, all those members are doing extremely well at West Metro. They're very successful. They're in highly promoted positions, and they're just very, very high performing members of our organization, West Metro. So you all should be very proud of what they did here at the Wheat Ridge Fire Protection District, but merging with us at West Metro in 2016, they've all done just fabulous. Of course, in 2013, it's not up here, but in 2013, Edgewater merged in with Wheat Ridge. So in 2016, when it merged with West Metro, Edgewater was part of that merger as well. So just, this is kind of just a little bit of our history with, you all, Wheat Ridge, and some of our predecessor organizations. A little bit more about today's West Metro, though. Let's take a look at that. We have 17 fire stations. Like I said, we're the second largest fire protection district in the state. And out of those 17 fire stations, we operate, just kind of run through a list here, 16 fire engines, 3 ladder trucks, 14 ambulances. We're an all hazards fire agency, which is important also to recognize. We also do ambulance transport. So our firefighters are cross-trained as paramedics. So when you see a West Metro ambulance in your community, there's firefighters on that ambulance as well. There's also paramedics on the fire engine. So if a fire engine shows up first, we're providing advanced life support, even if the ambulance isn't there, because the ambulance may be transporting another patient to the hospital. So the 14 ambulances that we operate, we have 3 chief officers, 2 safety medical officers, a squad unit, and 1 mobile grade healthcare unit. And this is the urgent care on wheels, really trying to help navigate some of our high utilizers for medical services, or just sometimes people need more resources and to get into programs and resources that they don't otherwise have access to because of not having a primary care physician or whatnot. So we have about 425 firefighters and paramedics, 66 civilian support staff. So just under 500 men and women that serve our mission every day at West Metro Fire Rescue. We're very proud of our special operations. You see a little image of that up there. again, all hazards, all services, hazardous materials, wildland. Wildland is in everybody's mind nowadays, even though that you're in kind of more of an urban environment, it is still a threat that we all need to be worried about, and our community is worried about that. We do technical rescue, water rescue, the list kind of goes on with all the services that we provide. So I want to kind of just give you a little snapshot of how big the population is, what the call volume's like. So you can kind of see up on the screen here, just under 302,000 population that we protect. As we kind of know that, sometimes Wheat Ridge, Lakewood, these suburbs are, kind of considered a bedroom community, but a lot of times we're seeing people work here and not living here. So that, 302,000 is not necessarily a daytime population. That's the number of residents that we serve. Now, that's about a 5% increase between 2017 and 2023. We jump over to the calls for service, just over 42,000. That's a call every 12 minutes. We're getting a call from 911 every 12 minutes. Now, you look at that number just below there, that's a 21% increase from the 2017 and 2025. And we picked this time frame exactly because Wheat Ridge merged with West Metro in 2016. So this includes all the Wheat Ridge data and Edgewater data coming over into West Metro. But we're still pretty pleased with our performance of getting first responders to these calls for services. So for 3.5 minutes, we're getting there for EMS, first arriving unit, and 4 minutes for fire calls. The standard that we're really looking for there is being under 4 minutes and 30 seconds of response time, travel time. Now, that doesn't count the time that dispatchers need to process the call and dispatch us, and that's when we're wheels rolling and get to a scene. But I want you to kind of just remember for a minute here this number, the 5% increase in population, but yet it's a 21% increase in call volume. So we'll kind of talk about that just a little bit more here. Again, I talked a little bit about our medical service, 26,000 calls, over 26,000 calls for medical service. This represents over 2/3 of our calls for service is medical calls, emergency medical services call, 62% you can see there. We're transporting almost 20,000 people a year, patients a year to local hospitals. Okay, just want to now jump into some of your numbers at Wheat Ridge. And I did give you this insert, which is a little bit more of a blow up of what you see on the screen there. We just want to provide you some 2025 data of the number of calls that for service that West Metro is responding to in the Wheat Ridge. And this allows me, this is a good segue to really talk about our partnership with Arvada Fire Rescue, with Chief Locke behind me, who will be speaking right after me. So what you see in the outline geographically there, that's the city of Wheat Ridge, that's your city. But if you don't know this, we split between Arvada and West Metro. Our dividing line is Clear Creek. So we have everything south of Clear Creek. Arvada has everything north of Clear Creek. Important, and now I go back to our mission statement, be responsible, resourceful. The ways we've done that is through partnerships. And the partnership with Arvada Fire is an important one because we have what's called an automatic aid agreement with Arvada Fire. So wherever the closest fire engine or ambulance is to a call for service, regardless of whose political boundaries it is, that closest unit is going. And that's very unique, and you should be very proud that that's happening in your community because that doesn't happen everywhere. It doesn't happen everywhere. So in this map, you kind of just see some color gradients. It just represents West Metro responding. If you can kind of see the area north of Clear Creek there, where it's got some blue and red in there, that's where West Metro was the primary responding unit to a call in the city of Wheat Ridge, but in Arvada's fire protection district. So for us, the jurisdictional boundaries don't matter. We're just going to get the best care, the best fire service to your community as quick as we can. So that represents that, and this represents an important partnership that we have with Arvada Fire. And you can kind of see the two West Metro stations that are operating there. Station 16, of course, right here downtown. It's on Upham, just off 38th, and then Station 17 is 38th and Parfait. Okay, and I got this handout for you just so you can kind of have some literature for you. It kind of covers some of the topics, not all the topics I'm talking about tonight, but you can kind of just see the main map of West Metro and, you know, some of the call volumes that we're experiencing there. Okay, so I just want to now bring us back to this map where I talked about the population, the 5% increase in population from 2017 to 2025 calls for service. I want you to take a look at the line below there. We took census data and we're projecting an 8.3% increase in the next 10 years in population. So if we correlate that with what we've seen for an increase for calls for service, we're projecting a 35% increase in emergency calls for service for fire and EMS in the next 10 years. So if you add our experience from 2017 to 2025, which is historical data, and yeah, we're in a little bit of a crystal ball looking forward, but we're using census data, we're using some predictive there. We're potentially looking at a 56% increase for call volume in that time period from 2017 to 2035. So this is becoming quite an issue for us to keep up with the high demand for calls for service and keeping up the cost and the expenses that we have for fire service. So everything I seem to do as a fire chief is like trying to look 5 years out, because a lot of the decisions that we make, that I have to make, there are huge financial impacts, and there is a lot of lead time on building additional fire stations, purchasing fire trucks, and that type of thing. Now, you know, this correlation, they're like representing that there's not a correlation between the population growth and the increase for calls for service. There's many factors for that, but there's one that really is undeniable. People are living in their primary homes longer. There's an aging in place phenomenon in our country. This isn't just specific to Colorado. So we are having increased calls for medical service, you know, for our citizens that are just choosing to age in place in their primary residence. That accounts for a large part of this offset where, you know, population isn't increasing, but our call volume's increasing. There are also other factors, quality of life factors, our unhoused population. We're responding to those situations, those needs. Wildfire incidents are becoming more predominant. So there's a lot of factors in this, but I just wanted to kind of talk about a couple there. Okay, but to try it again, to try to meet these demands, I have to really try to work with my board of directors, look out. So we did do a study, 2022, 2023. They said we have 17 fire stations currently. And this study, a third-party study to look at, you know, where location of fire stations were, our density of, and how many calls we're responding to. And this report revealed, not really a surprise to us, revealed that we really needed another 1 to 3 fire stations to meet this growing demand in our communities. And again, it's kind of part of that landscape, our fabric and our DNA, that we were just a consolidation of fire departments over the years. From the 20s and 30s and 50s, we're essentially built on a 1970s infrastructure right now. Our oldest fire station right now is 51 years old. We try to get about a 40 to 50 year lifespan out of that fire station. We actually have one that was built in the 40s, but it had some additions to it and remodels to it. The Wheat Ridge Station is actually a good example of it. We've done some enhancements and upgrades to that, but it's essentially started kind of as a 1930s, 1940s infrastructure. So this represents a planned fire station with West Metro. This is property that we purchased with approval of our board of directors at 5th and Wadsworth. So we have the location picked out for this. This is really the primary location that our study kind of pointed us to. However, this still is a long-term funding kind of conundrum if we're going to be able to move forward with this. We're doing some design work on it right now. We said we own the property. We just don't know if we're going to be able to move forward with it. But again, this third-party study showing 1 to 3 additional fire stations, really to kind of meet that, that increased demand that I was talking about. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about just some, what we're proud of with some of our credentials and some of our awards. The one on the left, that is the Commission for Fire Accreditation International. We and Arvada both are accredited fire agencies. So we go through rigorous assessment every 5 years to become reaccredited through this commission and this process. So it's a very onerous process, but and they look inside of our, our operations, our books. Do we say we're doing what we're saying, our strategic plan, our mission statement, those type of things. So again, very rigorous process that we're proud to be accredited. The one next to it, I just want to spend a little bit more time on that. ISO 1, does anybody know what seen that before, ISO 1? So ISO is Insurance Services Office. And that's the more umbrella company that is called Verisk, but they're very heavy in the property insurance industry. And ISO 1 is the highest rating that you can get from this organization that proves and these are only for fire departments, these ISO class ratings for fire departments. It proves that you have the equipment, the infrastructure, the training, everything in your organization to respond to a community's fire problem. They don't necessarily do anything with EMS, but this is directly impacts our community members' homeowners insurance rates. So having this highest level is incredibly important for your community, the community that I serve for West Metro as a whole. And this is something that it takes a lot of resources to maintain this level. And we just re-upped this last year. And, with our community growth, we have to also grow to be able to maintain this. Last time I checked, being an accredited agency and this ISO agency, there's less than 200 fire agencies across the United States and Canada that have both of these things. And in the room tonight, you have two. Us and Arvada both are accredited and have ISO Class 1. So just know that, we are trying to do everything we can to protect your community and give your constituents the best insurance rates they can possibly get on their homeowners and business insurance. The other, things I have up there, GFOA, Government Finance Officer Association, we're constantly proud of our awards that we get. OpenGov is our transparency portal for our finances. Anybody can go into our transparency portal and see where all of our money is getting spent and where that's all going to. So it's just important that I wanted to kind of spend a little bit of time on some of the things that we're proud of, but really representing our commitment to the community. Okay, so I do want to unfortunately talk a little bit about money tonight. So, and you'll see a little bit of this in that handout as well. So this is, kind of our projected financial outlook, and we'll kind of get into some reasons why we're seeing a decline in this. So this layers both our revenues and expenses since 2018. And you can see from 2018 till about 2024, our revenues kind of increased steadily. Again, we're primarily funded on property taxes, and that's going to be important here as we talk a little bit more about some of the changes. But from 2018, 2024, okay, we've seen an increase, but what's more important, our expenditures were obviously less than what our revenues were. That's okay. We were able to put some money into reserves over that time, fund some additional fire apparatus. But what you can see starting in 2024 and actually 2025, now you start seeing expenses exceeding revenue. And I'm going to tell you, coming out of COVID and the fire service and we all went through that, but incredibly challenging for how the increase that we saw on our vital equipment. I'll give you an example. On our fire engines, we were able to buy a fire engine in 2018 for about $720,000. Now it's fully equipped. In 2025, that's a $1.3 million piece of apparatus, $1.3 million. Those have about a 10 to 15 year life expectancy on those. So we're constantly trying to order And by the way, they take 5 years to get. I can order that fire truck today. It's going to take 5 years to get it. And I think you're seeing something similar in like, police cruisers and stuff. The cost escalation on those are pretty crazy. Another example, our cardiac monitors that we carry on all of our apparatus. Fire engines have advanced cardiac life monitor. Of course, the ambulance do. In 2018, I could buy that for about $25,000. Today's market, $60,000 for that piece of equipment, $60,000. So this is really the problem, right? We're seeing revenues not keep up with expenditures. In 2024, I'll just put an asterisk on that year. Just come in when we talk about some tax changes or legislative changes. We got backfill from the state. So we didn't have that backfill. 2024 actually would have been that year where we saw more expenditures and revenue. Now, what we're estimating is in 2027, and I'll get to this, nearly a $40 million shortfall in revenue for what we need for expenses. We went out to 2029 just to try to have a little bit of hypothetical of if nothing changes in legislation, if we have just some modest increases in property values, we're seeing almost a $50 million reduction in what we need for revenue. So let's kind of get into what this situation is. Now, I'm going to probably maybe go through this just a little bit quick because I don't want to spend a lot of my time talking about state legislation, but there's kind of a nice recap slide here. But I'm just going to go through a series of changes in our state legislation that really have kind of made a functional problem with property tax and how special districts are funding. So in 2020, Gallagher Amendment was repealed. Gallagher Amendment has been in Constitution since the 80s, and the rule was that we wanted business owners to pay more than residences. So the split was always 55% business owners or non-residential property paid more taxes than residential, 55% non-residential, 45% on residential. The non-residential was fixed at 55%. What fluctuated was the residential, the assessment rate is what was fixed. So, you'll have to kind of go back to your property tax 101. You have your value of your property, you apply your assessment rate, and then that gives you your taxable value. So the assessment rate was what was fixed with the commercial properties, 29%. The residential would fluctuate. Back in the 80s, the residential assessment rate was 21%, 22%. But as we saw, and this is statewide, this is a statewide formula. As you saw residential properties growth, more population in Colorado, that offset became more and more. So you kept driving down the residential assessment rate because you could never touch the commercial and non-residential assessment rate because of the Gallagher Amendment. Well, in 2020, as property, prices really started expanding, more growth in the state, that was repealed. And that was really kind of the start of some property tax, what I call conundrum in our state, and really how this impacts us. Prior to that, the property tax administrator in the state would set the residential assessment rate. After the repeal of Gallagher, state legislation now set the property tax. So we're just going to kind of go into 2021, 2022, and they kept, as property values kept going up, residential property values kept going up, state legislature kept decreasing either residential assessment rate or non-residential assessment rate. And you can see that in 2021. Now in 2022, something unique happened. Again, your property tax formula, you have your actual value of your property, you apply your assessment rate, and that gives you your taxable value. What happened in 2022, they said, we're going to reduce the property value before we even applied that assessment rate. They took $15,000 off before you could even apply that residential assessment rate. Again, I know I'm going to kind of go through this fairly quickly, and I can open it up for questions when I get through all this. So in 2024, more of a decrease on that before the assessment rate was applied, up to $55,000. And for almost the first time, we started seeing a decrease in the non-residential or that commercial property. It had always been 29% in our state. So we started seeing a decrease in that. So kind of understanding some of the problems that fire districts in the state and other special districts in the state were having, the legislators said, okay, in 2024 session, okay, well, we're going to allow fire districts specifically, not special districts, to have two things. You can apply an impact fee on construction, and you can go to the vote of people for a sales tax. So that also happened in 2024. If you recall, there was a special session in 2024 that we thought that that discount was only going to be $55,000, but that special session actually increased that up to $70,000. That's going to be applied to the 2026 taxes, which are payable in 2027. And this really is the root cause. I will get to this next slide, which gives you kind of a table of a summary of just some of the things that didn't have a Gallagher amendment up here on this table, but it just gives you a visual of what was happening in the years with the legislation, RAR, residential assessment rate, in RAR, non-residential assessment rate, valuation cut, and now there's a growth cap that we have to deal with. That as a special district, we cannot, if the property values statewide exceed 5.25%, we're capped at that as well, unless we go for a vote to the people on that. But just as a quick glance, all you're seeing here is a decrease. All you're seeing is arrows down, numbers going down. So this is really, in essence, the functional ratcheting down effect that us as fire districts have been dealing with for the last 5-6 years here. But we've been resourceful. We've been, really just mindful of being good stewards of our money, taxpayers' money, and really trying to make it work. I just want to talk quickly about the history of elections at West Metro. Some of these obviously predate our merger with Wheat Ridge. In 2006, we went to the vote of the people for a 1 mil property tax increase. That is where our mill levy sits today, was passed 20 years ago. 20 years ago was our last mill levy increase. So we'll kind of, talk a little bit more about property taxes here. We also did a bond. I'm proud to say that bond is going to be paid off partially this year, and in 2027, it will be completely paid off. That allowed us to build our training center at Hampton and Kipling, rebuild 5 fire stations, not add any fire stations. We were able to rebuild really aged fire stations, and we bought a ladder truck with that. I just wanted to share with you on this bond, when we merged with Wheat Ridge Fire Protection District, merged with us, fire chief at the time, didn't think it was right to apply the bond onto the Wheat Ridge taxpayers. So in your city, you do not pay for this bond. It's about a 0.6 mil that gets applied to taxpayers outside of the city of Wheat Ridge. But I just wanted to make sure to share that with you, that we felt that it wasn't proper, even though the training center is part of our overall operations. We didn't feel it was right to pass that bond cost on to the Wheat Ridge citizens. We'll move to 2014. 2014 was, we kind of think about, if you go back to 2008, 2009, you had the mortgage, housing crisis, a lot of real estate really decreased. We really were seeing some major financial impacts in 2010, 2011, 2012. 2014, we went to the vote of people to ask for a 2 mil levy increase, and that narrowly failed, but it did fail, of course. So in 2015, we had to make massive cuts. This was prior to the Wheat Ridge merger. They even were struggling. Like I said, I was very heavily involved with the leadership back then. They were struggling immensely in 2015 financially, but we had to make some pretty massive cuts, and even some resources that we don't even back today. So this is kind of our philosophy of trying to operate lean as a result of not passing that in 2014. Fast forward to 2018, of course, we were past the Wheat Ridge merger. This was a little bit of a complicated ask in the election, but this is a de-Gallagherization. So if you go back to that Gallagher, we saw the kind of path of residential assessments rates going down. So we were always used to about an 8% residential assessment rate. They were getting below 7. They were getting in the sub sixes. So we asked the voters to freeze our residential assessment rate to 7.2. So that is what our residential assessment rate is, 7.2. What we didn't ask for in that election was a non-residential or the commercial, because that had always been 29%, never changed. So we don't have that. And just for, quick tidbit, they went from 29%, now they're down to 25% is what the assessment rate is on those commercial properties. So again, just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a history of what we've done from elections. And you can see, hopefully we're very conservative about going to the voters every 7 or 8 years. This isn't something we're trying to do every year. So we really try to have a lot of forethought, a lot of planning around this. Okay, quickly I want to get into, we stood up this year kind of understanding we got a problem, kind of this functional problem with finances. So we stood up a community advisory group, 16 members all over our district, all kind of walks of life, backgrounds, elected officials, business owners, nonprofits, a really, really good group of people. We met over 4 sessions here in the first quarter, and really gave them a lot of information, kind of like a lot more expanded version of what I'm giving you tonight. Kind of showed them where everything is going for West Metro. And after the kind of the culmination of this is they offered a solution or a number of solutions to our board of directors. So they had these key findings that I'll just read here real quick. So our community advisory group, CAG as we call them, they agreed on these things, that we are high performing, we're efficient, but we have limited excess capacity. We just don't have a lot. We don't have a lot of reserves. We just don't have a lot of other ways to increase revenue. So our service demand continues to increase based on those population growth and those numbers that I talked to you about. And we're seeing more wildfire risk, which a lot of people in the community are definitely really concerned about. And then we're seeing that expense and exceed revenue, and there's just a functional problem there. This isn't us not tightening our belt or being good stewards. There's just a functional structural gap there. And despite these increases in property taxes, this is what's kind of a conundrum in our state, right? Like all of our property taxes have gone up, but our revenue as fire districts have gone down. So that is just becoming really hard for us to manage. That's our primary source of funding, and it's really no longer advisable that should be our primary source of funding. For primary public service agency that is just in the current condition with property tax, it's not advisable. And then it's really imperative that we find a solution, that we need to find a way to diversify our sources of revenue and just kind of modernize it based on current issues. And it's really, a lot of this stuff affects the safety of our first responders. A lot of these things, these equipment needs that we have, these fire station needs that we have. And they really did understand that, our community advisory group. So one kind of thing I want to let you know, we did do polling in March. We had a team behind me, obviously helping with this. We enjoy and build a lot of trust in the community. So 82% of the poll, people in our community that took the poll have confidence in how we would spend the funds. 52%, there's 2 questions that were asked, a sales tax question and a property tax question. 52% would support a 0.5. And I'll just pause here for a moment. A 0.5 would raise about $27.8 million. I've already told you and kind of indicated we have about a $40 million structural gap. So the 27.8 isn't going to make up all of that $40 million. 0.5 isn't, our board has not decided which way they're going to go on this. 0.5 was just a number that we wanted to poll the community with. We just don't know exactly where that's going to be. But 52% would support that. They got a little bit of education once they were informed on, and I always kind of joke, like I'm bad with percentage sometimes too, that on a $50 purchase, that's 25 cents. They're like, oh, okay. they supported it more. That went up to a 60% with a 35% definite yes. Those are like, I can count on those people, the 35%. So then we asked, in separate groups, there was one band only got the sales tax, another band only got a property tax. Only 43% supported a 3 mill levy property tax. Again, that was just kind of a starting number, 3 mil. That would only bring in about 22 million. We would probably obviously need to double that, about 6 mil. But the support just isn't there on the property tax. There was more education given about what the needs are. We need equipment for our first responders. We need fire stations. We need fire apparatus. Sales tax stayed really tight in there at that 59% support, increased to 43% definite yes. Property tax did not move. The needle did not move on that. 43% would remain in support in that. But what's even more is that 22%, only 22% is a definite yes on that. So we definitely wanted to share some of these results with you tonight. So moving on what the CAG recommendations were, that it wasn't just one thing that's going to fix these structural deficits. So it's kind of a menu of options, but there's some prioritized options here. Immediate, short-term, refer a sales tax increase to the district voters this year, November of 2026. Now, I want to read some language to you because, the 0.5 again is just what we pulled on. What these community members were very sensitive, and I'm very sensitive to you all as our community partners, our municipal partners, that is also a source of your funding. So I'm just going to read this here. While the CAG recommends that the board refers a sales tax measure to the voters this year, an exact rate for such sales tax was not identified. The CAG suggests that the actual sales tax rate used in a potential ballot measure should consider the potential impacts to other local government partners within the district, and that an attempt should be made to ensure that the total sales tax rate for a majority of these communities is below the Denver sales tax rate to try to maintain, obviously, your competitiveness with that kind of high bar, if you will, in the surrounding area. But with that said, our community advisory group, this is a big lift for us, for a fire district to go to a vote. We got to make sure this is something that is going to sustain us with the order of magnitude that's going to sustain us, because we don't want is to have to go right back to the voters next year on something like that. So we were definitely very sensitive to know how this is going to impact our community partners. Also, recommended looking at private fundraising options, foundation, public-private, partnerships. All those were great recommendations. That's just not going to move the needle. That's not going to buy a $1.3 million fire truck. So we're definitely exploring those things, but kind of on the order of magnitude, it's really probably the sales tax. And I think furthermore, to kind of highlight, the CAG did not recommend that we pursue the property tax increase. It just didn't look like we're going to get there. It is just so unpopular in our community to see any property tax increases, and that was very apparent in our polling and in the sentiment of our community advisory group. I'll go this through a little bit. I know I'm kind of getting a little bit long on my time here. Some other recommendations, look for other government solutions. We ran into each other in Washington, D.C. I was out there advocating for increased Medicare, Medicaid funding for our ambulance service. The only way we get reimbursed is if we actually take a patient to the hospital. It disincentivizes us to treat somebody. So there's some legislation going on in the state about treatment in place and maybe some reimbursement there. But these are, ongoing discussions, and I don't know that any of us is going to think that Medicare and Medicaid money is just going to come flowing in the door and kind of solve all our problems. We're going to continue to look at ways that we can, contain cost and be good stewards of that money. We're going to look for grant funding. I was having some discussion earlier. The majority of the federal grants all come within FEMA. Federal fire grants come from FEMA. The state there is really kind of questionable, what the future is. We have a grant that's expiring in July for staffing of additional firefighters. It's a 3-year grant. So we did enjoy that for a while, but that's expiring in July. So we'll continue to look for those. It's really uncertain waters out there on these federal grants. And we certainly are open to any cost-sharing measures. I talked about our mobile integrated health unit. If that's something that is super valuable to you and Wheat Ridge, and we can partner on more there, I mean, we don't get a lot of reimbursement off of that. We're trying to just make a good, meaningful impact in our community with our citizens with that. And then just, I'm quickly wrapping up here. We're going to continue pursuing. Our board is evaluating the implementation of impact fees. Again, those impact fees were brought in 2024, something that we can pursue as a fire district. We just got finalized that report, and it would be, on a construction project at the issuance of a building permit, approximately a 2,500 square foot resident would be about a $3,000 impact fee. That fee that we would collect could only go to a capital use. It couldn't go to paying salaries or benefits. So that is something that our board has just been presented with and is still evaluating that. But, there is that need for ongoing, long-term redoing facilities, adding fire station, purchasing more fire trucks. The CAG did recommend that, again, this kind of not one option, no one silver bullet. We may need to go back to the voters the next 2 to 4 years and pursue a bond. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Captain Mulcahy to give him a little bit of time here.
All right. Tough act to follow here after Chief Metz laying out the details. But again, thank you very much. I appreciate the time. My name's Mike Mulcahy. I've been a firefighter for over 25 years, mostly with West Metro. And kind of one of the things that I didn't realize becoming a firefighter is that we weren't just going to fight fires. You assume we're going to be charging into rooms, putting out fires, kicking doors down, and it's the only thing that happens, like Chicago fire, you see it on TV. What I didn't realize is all the other calls. I was prepared for some wildfires and some car accidents, medical calls. I never expected that we would become caretakers or counselors, plumbers and electricians, Christmas light decorators. These are some of the things that some of the 500 firefighters do on a regular basis. It's more than just putting out fires. It's about becoming a community member and advocating for our communities. We talked about, the people that are aging in place. It's not just the individual that's aging, it's also the caretaker there, either their wife, husband, partner, children that we care for when we're on scenes. It's taking care of those individuals, making sure that they are all right and they have the resources to treat their parents or loved ones. Those are the things I wasn't prepared for as a firefighter. I don't think any of us were. I have now 20 some years realized the sense of community and the sense of community service. And that's what West Metro provides. That's what your firefighters that respond to all of your neighborhoods, all of Wheat Ridge, provide. Those 500 firefighters are prepared for the worst possible outcomes each day. But we're prepared to manage those. What we weren't prepared for is what's been kind of happening over the last 20 years. The Chief Metz just laid out all the things that are happening at a state level, the legislative level. We haven't seen an increase in how we collect revenue since 2006. We thought we were prepared, and we went out and fought to cap that residential assessment rate in 2018. But we continued to see battles that were affecting how we collect and what we can do. Your firefighters want to continue to do and serve your communities the same way we've been doing for the last 100 years in this area. I didn't expect to be sitting here as a lobbyist or a consultant or a politician. I was appointed to represent the labor force for West Metro. And that's what I've done. And we are prepared for the next emergency. And I think Chief Metz laid it out exactly what that emergency is. We're starting to see the effects of failing to gather revenue through the tax measures that we can currently collect on. Your firefighters are prepared to go out the same way we approach emergencies, to go out and campaign, meet community members, speak to community members. We know what weight our brand carries as firefighters. We know the impacts of those conversations, but we have to do something, and that's exactly what we're prepared to do. Not only myself, but the Arvada firefighters as well are all under the same kind of impacts that we presented here tonight. So we're willing to do whatever we can. We know collaboration's a big deal. We're not looking to try and take something that's not ours. We want to work with our municipalities, all of them. We want to continue to be a part of the community. We want to continue to be community leaders. But I think, as we talked about, we can't keep going the way we currently are going. We're no different. Your firefighters, your stations are no different than we see aging streets, aging buildings. We've got to do something. So I think Chief Metz has laid out exactly kind of the timelines and what we would like to do and what the community feels we should do. We're hoping to hear any questions that you have, and hopefully we can answer them appropriately.
And I think with that, we will, and I don't want to eat into Arvada's time as well, but very important for me, representing the management of the organization, to have my labor leader sitting right next to me. It's incredibly important. This is not always common in the fire service, but us being in lockstep out here in our community is incredibly, I couldn't do this without support of our labor organization. So this is something I think very unique, and collaboration is key, and we don't want to overstep our bounds with you as our municipal partners, but it's imperative that we find a solution here. So I don't know if you want to have questions now of us, if you want us to yield to Arvada, or how would you like this?
We'll go ahead and answer any questions council has for you guys first, and then we'll go to Arvada. Do you have any questions from council? Councilor Quinn?
What a conundrum, and appreciate the thought and the presentation and all the information. I'm assuming this has a lot to do with Tabor too, does it? Especially when it comes to the backfilling of.
That's right.
Is there a way to de-Bruce anything to help out in this?
We have been de-Bruced for a number of years, but what also came in 2024 was that cap, that revenue cap of 5.25%. Again, that's statewide. That's not even within our district. So we have that in front of us as well, where we now need to decap on that statewide revenue limit. So that's something really we haven't even gotten into tonight, but we'll have to navigate those waters. We're not seeing those increases in property values right now. But, hopefully the economy stabilizes and we start seeing more property growth again. That's going to be an issue for all of your fire districts in the state.
Yeah, and the more growth, the more
growth,
everything
right.
kind of compounds there. We had talked about this, I think, at our last council meeting or another study session where we talked about telling the story. And I think you guys have done a great job of telling the story. But the flip side of that, what happens if if we can't get the money that you all need?
Yeah, and that's, I've done a little bit, and what's at risk on your flyer here. I didn't include that in my talking points here. But I talked about what's at risk and what the critical needs are. Just right off the bat, we represent, close to 500 people in our organization. Having those numbers, the workforce is, like any organization, it's your highest cost, right? Salary and benefits is the highest cost. We are not going to be able to sustain the adequate number of firefighters and paramedics. So we're going to have to reduce staff. We'll have to reduce our force. And then everything else really impacts the safety of our firefighters. We need the breathing apparatus, air packs. That's about a $3 to $4 million purchase that we need to make. We don't have the revenue to buy that gear for them. The training is what is critically important for firefighters and paramedics to be able to respond and be able to perform. They have to have training. We're going to have to cut our training programs. So unfortunately, some of the cuts are affecting their safety. Like we're gonna put a skeleton crew together because we have to with whatever resources we have. But I'm not able to buy the safety gear and train them appropriately. That's really what's at risk here.
Go ahead and come up to the, yes. Come on up to the microphone and then just introduce yourself as well.
Okay. Again, Carolyn Wolfram, the board vice president. I wanted to just add something about the air packs. We actually just got a presentation this last board meeting. The lifespan of these air packs is supposed to be like 7 years. And talk about being good stewards of the funds that we've been given. The department has actually figured out how to keep these air packs working an extra 7-8 years. And my concern was, oh my goodness, are they keeping you as safe as a new one would? And they said that they were, and the reparation works are second to none. But I think that that's just a really stark example of what we are already doing to make these funds stretch.
Thank you. And we talked about, a reduction in staffing and what that looks like. Right now, we respond to everything. There's no point where we go, oh, we're not going to go on that call or that emergency. Someone in the community has called 911, and we will respond every single time. Now, we may get there and it may not be an emergency, but it's someone's emergency. It requires us to show up, determine that, mitigate that problem, mitigate that hazard right there and then. That's what we are to the community. That's what we've always been to the community, is someone that can fix a problem right now. That's what your firefighters do. Once we start reducing that, we're not going to be able to respond to every call. Once you start reducing staffing and reducing equipment, we just can't respond to everything. And when do we say that emergency is not enough? That's not something I want in my career. That's not something I believe anybody here wants to gamble on. Is the person calling with a real emergency or not? And how do we handle that? That's what's at risk.
Yeah, perfect, thanks. It's never a good thing to get rid of equipment or safety or training and people, because that's where the rubber hits the road, man. Having the resources out there to help the citizens and the community. Thanks a bunch, you guys.
Thank you. Counselor Ohm.
Thank you, Chief Metz. You have really good people. I've seen their work in my neighborhood, with houses on fire and response times. The one thing that I always I hear about and that I've seen recently is I won't go into too much detail, but I have an elderly neighbor, and what I see often, this is not a West Metro, it's not a Colorado, it's across the entire United States, is what showed up was a fire truck, very heavy, big fire truck for people, and then an ambulance with 2 other people. So 6 personnel, 2 vehicles. Nobody was carried out. I hear 2/3 of, the calls are medical. I hear that you can't get reimbursed if you don't take somebody out. And I hear that vehicles are expensive. And so my thought is, then why are you, I have a couple questions. So why are you sending out the most expensive vehicle to do the job of an ambulance? Why not? And then I'm reading an article by Ward Apparatus, and it says why fire departments are transitioning to smaller emergency vehicles. And then looked on YouTube, I looked on the internet, everybody's asking the same questions. Like I said, it's not unique to West Metro, it's everybody's asking like why. And then the other thing is when I travel in Europe, you're dealing with much denser populations, usually much taller buildings and much narrower roads. And so they have much smaller vehicles. They're usually about 10,000 GVW less than what we typically have in the US. But they're also putting them on, instead of custom frames, they're using commercial frames, like you've probably seen Mercedes. And so
Right.
I understand that there's probably a cost savings by having a standardized, non-custom, smaller vehicle. They're only using, I understand they're only using the latter ones only for rescue, not for fire suppression. But having all those comments together, please explain to me
Yeah.
why, because I just feel like, is that the fastest vehicle? If you had to pick a vehicle out of all your different types, there's probably an ambulance, there's probably a small truck. You got to get from point A to B. Is that fire truck, is that the fastest? If there's traffic, or is the smaller vehicle faster?
Yeah, these are excellent questions, and really, the backbone of being an all-hazard combined fire and EMS agency, it's really kind of the recipe behind all of that. If you had, all we have to go is go over to Denver. Denver has a separate fire department. There's not a single paramedic on the fire engine in Denver. They're basic life support providers. The ambulance service is a completely separate entity. And there's examples all over the country with this. There is a scalability and a level of efficiency when you combine all of this into one organization, an all hazards response organization. So there's some other simple responses to those questions. As I told you, we have 17 fire stations. We only have 14 ambulances. So there's not an ambulance at every fire station. It's really the time is imperative in our business, whether that's a fire growth in your house, if you're in cardiac arrest, if you're having a stroke, if you're having a heart attack, it's minutes and seconds, like in law enforcement too. We need to stop the clock. We need to get providers on scene as quick as possible to start interventions, whether that's firefighting, EMS, hazardous materials, whatever it is. The other part of this is our staffing model. So again, being efficient and a lean agency on that fire engine, there's only 3 firefighters on that fire engine typically. We have our officer, Mike is an officer, he's a captain. We have our driver, it's an engineer, and then we have the firefighter in the back of that fire engine. If you didn't have the ambulance as part of our organization, we would need 4 to 5 firefighters on that fire engine to be able to attack a fire appropriately. But with the fire engine and the ambulance showing up at the same time, I could now put 5 or 6 people together and start treatment, start firefighting, all of these things. So again, I'll kind of, weave around a little bit here, but, some of the vehicle selection that you're talking about on our ambulances, that you have to understand, those are firefighters on that ambulance as well. So we carry all of their fire gear on that ambulance. That's why they're a little bit larger. They have their air packs, their protective equipment. They have some hand tools on there, in addition to, being an ambulance and transporting patients. In the fire engine selection, yeah, that's a lot about kind of standardization. We get the maximum life out of this company that we choose to be a manufacturer for our fire engines. Our mechanics are internal to us. They keep them running in really good shape. The kind of more commercial chassis style, those don't have the lifespan and longevity. So we've actually done analysis on it. We get, year over year, it's better for us to buy these fire engines that we have versus a commercial one because they're almost more disposable than what we have. So again, there's kind of a little weaving in and out of there. There's not ambulances at every fire station. And even if there was, like right over here at 38th and Upham, you have you have an ambulance there. They do, I told you, we transport almost 21,000 patients a year. 6 times a day, 6, 7, 8 times a day, they're transporting someone to the hospital. So even though there's one that's stationed there, typically, there is no typical in our industry. When the heart attack happens, when the fire happens, luck is that ambulance isn't there. They're on their way to the hospital. So our fire engine, with paramedics and the fire engine showing up, that's what protects lives. That's what stops that clock, saves brain tissues, treats cardiac arrest, those types of things. So great question, but these are really the fundamental features of why an all-hazard fire district is. There's scalability there, and there's good efficiency by us putting all of that together to make the response happen to the community. And I will, sorry, one more. I mentioned real quick that we had a squad. I don't know if you remember, I said we have a squad. I didn't really explain what that is. That is our downtown, our Station 1, Lakewood Station, right across from Casa Bonita. That is a pickup truck that's running low acuity calls in that area because of the volume of calls that we have there. That is a very successful model that we use the least expensive apparatus. We have two people on that apparatus responding to a lot of high call volume in that area. So we're trying to be efficient. We're trying these different modalities in the community. So sorry to interrupt you there.
No, I was just one quick question. So on scalability, is there a minimum firehouse size? I'm just thinking, you've got 2 Wheat Ridge, and you're talking about another one a little bit down south, where you would, as density changes, where you have, okay, we're gonna have something much smaller, but it'll be closer to decrease times, trying to get to A to B.
Yeah, like if you look at the map of our district, the further north we are, it's just a lot more dense, right? Because the more the urban setting, further west you go, we go up to the foothills, Morrison, I mentioned. It is more of a suburban, almost even rural. The fire stations are spread out a lot more. They're spread out a lot more, which increases the travel time. And that's really the key metric for us is how quick. And when I say quick, you're not going 80 miles an hour in this fire truck to get to somebody's house. It's just where are you positioned at to get to these areas. And it's special equipment that we have in there. The further west you go, we got more wildfire, apparatus that are stationed there. Our ladder trucks are strategically placed throughout the district for those rescues and higher buildings. Yeah.
I'd just like to add to, I know you talked about, you see a lot of people not being brought out from their houses, that a fire truck, an ambulance show up, and 10 or 15 minutes later, we're leaving and they're still in their homes. Those are kind of the calls that I was talking about. We've got everybody now, as we age in place, are wearing their alert pendants. Or family members aren't home and will call and say, I can't get a hold of my mother. I can't get a hold of my father. I believe something's wrong. I talked to them earlier. They're not responding. Some of them even have cameras in their home. I could see him. He's laying on the floor. Those are the calls we're responding to, where we don't know what we're going into. We don't know if it's a person who just needs help getting out of the bathtub, or getting out of his chair, or getting the mail. Those are the things we're not aware of. If it's cardiac arrest, if it's a stroke, and we do need more than 2 people on an ambulance. 2 people on an ambulance are not efficient when we're talking about advanced cardiac life support. You need that quick response, all hands, to where we can provide overwhelming advanced cardiac life support in a short period of time.
Any other questions? Councilor Wood.
Actually, I have more a comment and probably less a question. I really appreciate the presentation that you did tonight. I appreciate how detailed it was, particularly regarding the work that you do, the funding that you have, and the issues with the funding as a result of legislation the repeal of Gallagher and the legislation that occurred in the years thereafter. I remember when some of those went through. I did not truly understand the impact. And I'm sure there's plenty I still need to understand about that, but this was really helpful and I appreciate it. What I really appreciate most, I think, is obviously your public sector. There are a lot of other public sector or at least a handful of other public sector entities. Many of them have funding shortfalls. Sometimes you have to wonder how big the pot's going to be and how successful all can be. But what really struck me is that without understanding the individual needs of each one and the potential funding sources that could be tapped and the sharing of information, we all need to get there, but we're not going to be able to get there without that understanding of that bigger, more holistic picture. And I think that, I may be wrong, but I think that at least in part was the purpose of you coming here tonight and providing that detailed look. And I don't think it fell on deaf ears. And I'm certain it didn't fall on deaf ears. I'm certain we all learned from it. But again, that sharing of information, I think, is going to be the key to going forward. So I really do appreciate it. I learned a lot from what you presented tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, thank you.
Councilmember Martell, and then Mayor Pro Tem Hultina online.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
We'll go to Councilor Martell first.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. First, I want to apologize for my technical issues and coming in late and missing the roll call. Second, I mostly have a comment more than a question because Councilmember Quinn asked one of my normal questions of if this doesn't happen, what are the takeaways or what are the consequences? So a lot of that was already covered, and so thank you for explaining that. I do have one comment that I would just like to share with West Metro, along with Councilmember Wood, and appreciating the explanation and the additional information and the storytelling and background you gave us all. I do want to acknowledge your presence in the community in your taking on and initiating and continued sponsorship and support of the 9/11 stair climb. My partner and I have attended that many, many times, and it's always such an amazing event. And listening to you talk tonight about the community aspect of what you do and not wanting to have that be a takeaway in your career or in your time, I completely understand, and it aligns with how I have always seen you in the community, even before my time on council and as a municipal partner. So I just really appreciate your presentation tonight and everything you do, and just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for the stair climb sponsorship as well. So thank you all.
Thank you very much for that feedback. This is why we're here today. We want to be partners and, collaborate with you. We don't want to be in a silo. That doesn't do any of us any good. We don't want to be in a vacuum. So this is important for us to be here tonight.
Thank you. We'll go to Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry I'm not there in person tonight. Thank you for the presentation. It's really helpful to better understand sort of the scale and scope of the operations and how, various things are impacting the financial stability of the district. I do have two questions. One, I'm curious in the polling if you just polled a half cent or if you polled any other taxing levels like a quarter cent.
We did just pull the 0.5%. Again, we did this in March, so we just had to pick a number. We had ongoing analysis of what our deficit looked like it was going to be, what it was going to be in 2027. When we're done with that analysis, again, nearly $40 million is what appears our deficit to be. But we had already launched that poll, but we want to try to stay conservative as possible, just to be, again, partners with what I keep saying with our municipalities and other stakeholders. That was just a start, was that 0.5. That is the only thing that we pulled in March, was the 0.5.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think one of the concerns that I have as we look at what potential ballot measures could look like in November is I'm hearing, there's a lot of different, organizations looking to go to the ballot for different things, but in particular, sales tax has more traditionally been, how we've looked to get our revenue. We're in the process of contemplating, our own capital needs long-term. And so I'm personally just, thinking about what does it look like when we start stacking multiple asks and how does that pull? So that's just sort of at the forefront of my mind as we're talking about how to fund the things that we need. And then the second thing that I was going to ask, as you've done a pretty good job of explaining this, and I understand being a full hazard response organization, but can you help me better understand the relationship between the fire district and other first responders, like ambulance drivers? Like how is it determined who responds and like how those response times sort of are measured across different agencies?
Yeah, for sure. No, great question. And sorry if I didn't explain it, adequately. Like when you see a West Metro Fire Rescue ambulance, that is a firefighter. That is a cross-trained firefighter. They will come into the organization as an EMT basic, EMTB, but within about 3 years, all of our employees will receive training at the paramedic level. So in our organization there, and Arvada, I can answer for them as well. It is everyone that you see on our apparatus that's going with lights and sirens, responding to your community. They are all firefighters, and they all have then different levels of EMS certification. As far as the data measurement, you asked about that. I mentioned that we're accredited agencies. That is like one of the keystones of being an accredited agency is tracking your data, being transparent with it, continuous improvement. So we are all like, in this handout that I give you, it's all about showing every 4 minutes, that's our average travel time for the first arriving unit on fire calls. 3.5 minutes travel time for the first arriving unit on EMS calls. That is all tracked. Chief Berth and I, we both sit on the JEFCOM 911 dispatch center board. So we're constantly working with JEFCOM and their operations to make sure we're getting dispatched as quickly as possible to respond to those emergencies. So of course, the 911 call starts at the dispatch center. The call has to get processed. Then we get alerted, then we get on the road and respond to the scene. So hopefully that answers that question. When you see a West Metro Fire Rescue unit, whether that's a fire truck, ambulance, you'll see pickup trucks driving around. That's either a chief officer or a safety and medical officer. Those are all firefighters. They're all firefighters, maybe different rank levels, but they are all cross-trained firefighters and EMS providers.
Thank you for that. I was actually, I guess I'm trying to understand, like if I call 911, is it always going to be a West Metro firefighter or fire response, or could it end up being an ambulance? Like how is it determined which agency responds to a 911 call?
If it's a medical emergency, you will receive a fire engine and an ambulance from West Metro. If it is a fire, you will also receive an ambulance, and that's for twofold, because those members on that ambulance, they're firefighters, and they're going to get their equipment on, and they're going to engage in firefighting activities. But we send multiple ambulances to fire calls because if there's a victim, we need to immediately treat those patients. But the ambulances that you see in Wheat Ridge, I'll just be clear, they're either West Metro ambulances or Arvada Fire Department ambulances. There is not a private ambulance or another ambulance service that responds to 911 calls in your community. You might see them going to healthcare facilities or whatnot. We call those interfacility transfers. But if it's a 911 emergency, rest assured, you're going to see an Arvada fire medic ambulance or a West Metro ambulance. Hopefully that answers.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. And I think the last thing, just, moving forward from tonight, it would be great to have, more of a partnership with the fire department. A lot of things, affect our city that are in partnership with the fire district, including roadway design and building design. So I know we get to see you every couple of years when we update our building code. But I think there's other things that would be really great to more proactively engage with the fire district as a partner and what makes our city great. So appreciate your time tonight and answering my questions.
Thank you.
We'll go to Councilor Larson.
And thank you, Mayor. And believe me, I feel like I have a much better understanding of why whenever I see an ambulance, I see a fire truck. I've always kind of wondered about that, but it certainly makes a lot of sense. It's more of a comment tonight, and it was touched on by a couple of my colleagues here. This fall's ballot will be filled up with a number of initiatives and other things on our ballots that will frankly be asking for money. In addition to electing officers, there will be several. When we start at the state of Colorado, we'll probably have one. Jefferson County will have one. Jefferson County Schools will have one. The city of Wheat Ridge may have one. Both fire districts serving Wheat Ridge will have probably something on there. Just I would urge your board to proceed cautiously. We heard that telling this story, this very important story, needs to be the highest priority because if you're going to be asking taxpayers to pay more at the cash register, they're going to need to know why. So just a bit of advice as you go forward, but I certainly support the effort, and I feel like I have a much better understanding for the need for additional revenue. Thanks.
And if I can comment to that, we absolutely understand the challenges that we're faced with. This isn't something that, when Chief Metz came to me and said, hey, we're going to be struggling moving forward. How do we move on this? It truly is a collaboration, and that's what we're trying to do here, build partnerships with your municipalities. But I know where we're going to be on the ballot if we run a ballot initiative. We're going to be on the back. We're going to be on the bottom. A lot of different things people are going to be going through when they're receiving their ballot. But that's where I talked about our brand, the firefighter brand, and what we bring to elections. We know when we can get organized and we can prepare that we can accomplish any emergency, this being one of them. And I would rather do that in coordination with Wheat Ridge and work with Wheat Ridge so you can have that brand as well. And we can focus on public safety. So.
Thank you. Councilor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor. Just another round of thank you. This is, it's a lot of work that you put into this, and I appreciate very much you coming and talking with us and explaining this. This is a dire situation, and we rely on you as a community. And so we're very grateful for you. I'm assuming that you'll probably go and speak with Lakewood and Edgewater and all of the folks in your district. And I kind of wanted to echo what Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen said. It's nice to kind of have this connection, and I'm wondering if we could, and we can probably work with our city manager to do this, but, after you get, some feedback from other communities or any revelations that anyone has, or that pot of money that's hanging out somewhere that we just haven't found yet, if we could kind of have a debrief on how things went. Because I know that this, as several of my colleagues have mentioned, is, funding in general for our city, for us is a big, it's a big deal, and it will continue to be. And making sure that we are communicating and staying in close contact with our constituents in our community is important for all of these things. And so kind of knowing where you're landing and anything that comes, I would love to just, stay apprised of that. I'm not trying to add more to anyone's plate, but, that would be.
No, and I was gonna make a comment, like, if there's a tempo that you all want to see me here to report out, I'm happy to accommodate that. Our fire marshal is also a good, comes and updates you on I heard about building codes and whatnot, but obviously, in light of this situation, very important for us to stay connected, stay informed. I will tell you, like, this is not my decision. This is our elected officials' decision. This is, 2 board members represented tonight, 7 elected officials. That's their decision. I'm going to give them all of the research, all of the education that I possibly can, through the sentiment of the community through these meetings. Yes, we are meeting with Edgewater, we're meeting with Lakewood, I'm having conversations constantly. But like any kind of ballot thing in November, the decision probably won't officially be made until August. But that's just kind of the roadmap, if you will. But this isn't just I'm here tonight presenting and we're going to stop this conversation, right? So I hear that loud and clear that we'll continue to be here. My presentation went off, but my phone number's on there, my email's on there. I'm open for any questions, comments that you have throughout this process. And obviously you keep working with Mr. Goff on those communications as well. So thank you.
We'll go to Councilor Okada.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chief Metz and Captain Cahey. Really, thank you very much for it's very difficult work, very important work, and thank you very much for this presentation. I did my research over the weekend on the presentation, and I had quite a few questions. Almost all of them were answered. So just really commend you on being extremely thorough and helpful to us in understanding just the scale and the shape of the problem. Whenever I see a heat map, let me preface this by being a naive layperson's question, but whenever I see a heat map, especially when it comes to calls for service, I think back to our community success in our public safety and policing for the calls for services that we had in District 4 at Kipling and I-70. The approach that seemed to be successful there was an attempt to mitigate the emergency and the displacement of resources by being able to focus on ways before the emergency to prevent the situations that are happening out there in the community. And I imagine that kind of work is something that's being done by Station 16, which I see a lot of heat around. And I don't mean to pick out any one thing in particular, but has there been efforts from the fire from your guys' organization to be able to help mitigate the amount of frequency that certain locations need?
This is a great question, and sorry this is going a little long, but you're just having such great questions. So multiple answers here. There is a lot of effort for fire prevention, education around fire prevention. Wildfire mitigation is a omnipresent threat for us. So, and I know you don't necessarily experience it here in your community, but wildfire mitigation, we put a lot of effort into our outlying, interface, wildland and urban interface areas to wildfire mitigation to prevent catastrophic losses of like what you saw at the Marshall Fire, the Palisade Fire. We have that environment in this Front Range area. We have that environment. We all need to recognize that. So there is a lot of effort on that side, the wildfire prevention side, fire prevention side. On the medical call for service, I want to talk about a couple things there. I briefly kind of went back and forth talking about this advanced resource unit that we have, mobile integrated healthcare. I could spend a whole hour talking about that, but that is staffed with a paramedic and actually a nurse practitioner. So this is something way outside of the mold of what a traditional ambulance does. It's like an urgent care on wheels. But what that unit does is it really offers guidance and education for members in our community that are having a high utilization of 911 services. Again, I'm going to go back to aging in place. Captain Mulcahy talked about, the elderly person living in their home, the caretaker living in their home. This unit can come in with a nurse practitioner and get more resources for that homeowner that prevents the next 911 call. They work with our unhoused population in Lakewood. There's a clinic that they work and provide services for our unhoused population in Lakewood, making sure they have their prescription. Something as simple as that, making sure they have their prescription. The other thing that I'll talk about, again, this is kind of becoming, even if you're not aging in place, you may be aging in an assisted living facility or a skilled nursing facility. You have those in your community. We have those all over our district. We have a program that one of our EMS captain works on to help reduce the burden on 911 calls to these facilities. And that's been very successful. We call that the Assisted Living Initiative, that we've seen good impact on being preventative. Anytime we can prevent the emergency, you're absolutely right. That saves that 911 resource for that actual emergency. Great questions.
Yeah, thank you for that answer.
Sometimes as firefighters, we're all trained. Some of the simplest things is just to reach out to a family member and say, are you aware that this is going on? That extra 5 minutes to reach out to a loved one to say, hey, we're here with so-and-so. We've been on them 3 times in the last couple weeks. They're having this problem continuously. Are you aware of that? And most of the time is, no. My dad, my mom, my uncle didn't want to burden me with these problems. But that's a simple thing that we're able to do as well, is just reach out to family to let them know, hey, we are seeing a problem. We're seeing a continued problem. How can we help? What resources can we provide? Is it that arm car? Is it that nurse practitioner? Or is it just being aware that maybe their family member needs a little bit more care, a little bit more help?
Councilor Arnold.
I have a curiosity question on that incident map. There's that yellow spot, which is really bright. What's going on there?
West.
Okay.
Just a high concentration of residents there with some needs.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't call out specific addresses on these, but I didn't, so.
Do we have another questions from council? All right, we will thank Captain Mulcahy, Chief Metz. Thank you both for being here tonight. We appreciate you both, and you've given us a lot of food for thought. So
Yeah. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Again, my contact's on there, and I feel like I ate into Chief Locke's time a lot, so I appreciate your time.
That's all right. Thank you very much. And we will go ahead and have Chief Locke and anybody you'd like to have join you up here. Well, welcome Arvada Fire. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here tonight. And if you want to introduce yourselves and go ahead and get started.
So I'll try to get started and try to be short, I know we've been here a long time.
Chief, is your green light on your, there you go.
Sorry. So we're pretty much this, provide the same services. We're pretty much, we're ISO 1, we're accredited and everything just like they are. But I'll get started with the slide. So we're going to start, I'll tell you a little history about our department. So we're a little smaller than West Metro. We have 11 staff stations, 7 ALS fire companies, 7 ALS ambulances, 3 ALS ladder trucks. We have a safety and medical officer, a community support team. That's for mental health calls and things like that. We have 200 firefighters. We serve 60 square miles, almost 150,000 residents, and we made over 19,000 calls in 2025. Our calls are just a little bit different than the West Metro's. Almost 75% of our calls are EMS in nature. Like he says, we're an ISO1, and we've been accredited since 2014. Our calls for service, like Jeremy was talking about, since 2016, our calls for service have increased 27% over that time. And we do a lot of things like you were talking about a while ago to try to curtail our growth, and I think we're doing a good job in that, coming from a department where calling volume went up much more over that same time period. Oh, that worked. There we go. So some of our history, we became a fire district in 1911, so we go way back. We didn't become a paid department until 1999. Arvada's got a rich history. It was said for many years before 1999 that we were the largest volunteer organization west of the Mississippi. We've also worked with Clear Creek on the north side of the creek since very early in our start as well. In 1999, we went paid. And during that time, our ALS, we started ALS Transport in 2013. And in 2025, we merged with Fairmount Fire. We serve 3 municipalities. We serve Wheat Ridge, we serve Arvada, and we serve a very small portion of Golden. So us, like West Metro, we're an all-hazard department. We have much regional leadership. Our fire marshal serves on the state board for things like that. I serve across the country on different boards. Matt and Dave serve on boards. I'll tell you a little bit more about our community risk reduction in a little bit. Deanna Zuri, she's pretty much a nationwide expert on community risk reduction, teaches at the National Fire Academy. And we very much value being a partner across the nation. Some of the things we cover fire suppression. We have, like I said, we're ALS Transport. We're wildland. We have a wildland fire response. We actually have people deployed right now for wildland fire. We're part of the USAR team that West Metro houses. Colorado Task Force 1, respond to disasters all over the nation. We're also ICE and Swiftwater Rescue. Everyone in our department, every firefighter in our department has a red card, which is a red wildland firefighter certification. And everyone in our department also has their ICE certification, and that's our 2 biggest risks. If you drive by the pond on Ward Road and I-70 in January and February, you'll see us out there every year recerting. We do technical rescue, all hazard technical rescue, and we serve as the Jefferson County Hazmat Authority. We also participate in response prioritization programs. We were an early adapter of Rescue Task Force principles. We work with both the Wheat Ridge and Arvada with our Rescue Task Force principles. In January, we started a whole blood program. We're the first department in the metro area that's doing a whole blood program. We've already successfully implemented a whole blood to a patient 14 times this year. We provide, like I said, a very robust community risk reduction program, as the council person was talking about. We try to mitigate the emergency before it happens. Some examples of that: we have a Citizens Academy every year. We have a Youth Academy every year. We have a Senior Academy every year. We do fall prevention for our senior citizens. We have facility outreach. We do youth fire setting. We do car installation and recycling. We also have a community CPR program where we teach both hands only, and certification for CPR. We also have Dave's Locker. If you hadn't heard about that, it's a program that we're very proud of, to where if you need a wheelchair or some crutches or anything like that that might assist you in some kind of medical process you're going through, you can come to our headquarters facilities, and it's free of cost. You just come get it and check it out. And all we ask is that when you get done, you bring it back. We've been recognized nationally for that program, and we've had several other fire districts in this area that have copied our program. We're very proud of that. Our fire marshal, he works much on the codes and things that the state are looking at, like single stairwell, that was such a big issue. He's a spokesman for that. He also works on a lot of the NFPA rules and regulations that are coming down. We serve on many of the Jefferson County things, like the hazmat team. I serve as the board director at JeffCom. Metro Chief, Matt serves as Metro Chief's Operations Group, where he sets up the response patterns, where if we have a big wildland event like the Marshall Fire or something like that, he's the one that actually goes in there and sets all that up to where we have a plan for response. We have several of our employees that get recognized. We just, in the last month, we had 2 employees recognized. We had Tracy Leva, that was recognized nationwide for Wildland for his Ready, Set, Go program. We actually went to Reno, Nevada to have him recognized. And we also had the Responder of the Year for our sound program. So our strength, no doubt, our strength is our people, and we put a lot of into our people. We spend a lot of our revenue and time trying to make sure that that in my words, I want Arvada Fire to be the fire district that firefighters want to work for. So the 2 biggest issues in the fire service, if you don't know, and I think everybody pretty much knows, is like y'all been talking about earlier, is apparatus and getting enough employees. Getting certified firefighters is something that's really, really hard to do. And many fire departments across the nation are having trouble with both retention and recruitment. I'm happy to say that we're 100% staff, much like our Wheat Ridge Police Department. We're very proud of that, and I think it's because we put a lot into our people. We make our people go to mandatory mental health every year. We put a lot of money into their physical, with medical checkups every year, and we have our people do twice a year physical fitness testing. So, but the challenges we're going to run into in the very near future is, like I said, we started in 1999. So that means we have a lot of people that are getting to the end of their career. In the next 5 years, we expect to lose 40 firefighters. And many of them are chief officers and company officers. But we're planning on that. We got a plan for it. We're staying proactive. We're ahead of the curve, which most times that's really unheard of in the fire service. When I came here 6 years ago, we were in a mandatory overtime position. We were forcing people to work all the time, and that's not good, and it hurts your retention. Now we're fully staffed. Last year, we lost 0 firefighters. That's something else we're very proud of. So the challenges. So just like Jeremy was talking about, and he covered the fire engines, I covered a few other things. The ambulances, you see, the fire engines, since 2020, they went up 80%. And you was talking about commercial cabs and stuff like that. So we went outside the box on that as well. We actually have bought some demos from off the floor at FDIC. We bought a tiller truck from that LA ordered and didn't pick up. So we got some better prices. And instead of waiting 5 years, we were able to get the apparatus right then. When I came here, we had a 12-year replacement plan, which we wasn't meeting. And NFPA recommends a 15-year replacement plan. So we have pushed our replacement plan from 12 years to 15 years. So we're trying to be better stewards of our citizens and do a good job at making the money go as far as we can. With addition to that, we also did we have a facilities condition assessment done on every one of our buildings. That way we can have a great capital improvement plan for the next 5 years to ensure that we're spending the money where we need to spend it and how we need to spend it. That facility condition assessment also showed us that Two of our stations, we'd be better off rebuilding than putting that much money into them. That's Station 1 and Station 4. So we've already purchased the land for both of those stations. Station 1 will be responding in the Wheat Ridge, and the new location, will be a better response to the Wheat Ridge area as well. And like we talked about earlier, if we don't get these things, there will be some reductions in service. But we've already been planning for that as well. Like, we've got some positions right now that are open that we're not filling. And the reason we're not filling them is we want to see where our funding is going to be. Worst case scenario, say we didn't get any kind of additional revenue, we've already got plans in place to try to combat some of that. And hopefully we don't have to go down that road, but we are planning on it. Our board, when we was looking at this, gave me a mandate to try to look at a tax increase that will allow 8 to 10 years without asking again. So we hadn't asked for a tax increase either since 2016. So I think we've done a good job of being good stewards of the taxpayers' money. And the same thing, we're going to stretch that out this time. And that's the reason we're doing what we've done. And the graph on the right shows the same thing that Jeremy was showing, is how our revenue, if you look on the left, it's our total revenue. On the right is our total expenditures and our ending fund balance. So in 2028, we'll actually be below where our board wants us to be as far as their mandate for our funding, but we will still be Tabor compliant. So we polled our people on the highest thing that we thought we could ask for, which is 1%, which would raise us $23 million. One thing that I don't think Jeremy did cover as far as our sales tax deal is the exemptions. So there's many things that we can't tax, and that's what's listed there. We can't tax food, we can't tax diapers, we can't tax gas, farm equipment, retail, marijuana, things like that. There's a whole complete list of taxes on the website there. A good comparison is Westminster last year did a 0.4 sales tax for the same thing for fire service. They'll raise as much money with their 0.4 as we'll raise with our 1% because they don't have any exemptions. We also look at a property tax. So if we did a 7.25 additional mills, it would raise the same funding. So we did the polling already too. If you look, we got almost 80% approval rating from the Fire Protection District's citizens. As you look, 62% strongly approved us. We polled them on a 1%. We received a 66 on the initial question. And after showing them our needs, that went up to 70%. Same way with the mill levy. And we showed them, if we want the mill levy, we had 54% initial. And then after we showed them our needs, that went up to 58%. We got 51% of our respondents would rather us go for a sales tax than 17% for a property tax. And like I said, no decisions have been made on any of this. It'd be up to my boss behind us and the rest of the board members. So we still hadn't made a decision on any. None of this is this decisions have been made on this. So I know I covered that fast, but I was trying to get to it since y'all already heard most everything we're going to talk about. Matt, you got anything you'd like to add? So any questions?
Counselor Wood.
Hit the wrong thing. It's interesting, looking at the polling between sales tax and property tax. I mean, it's clear that sales tax was favored over property tax. And I was wondering, do you have any thoughts on what the reason might be for that? My one thought I had is that it's easier for people to understand sales tax and that increase maybe than property tax.
Well, I think it's a lot of different things that play into that. First of all, I think a lot of our citizens are baby boomers and older adults. So I think they feel like they're paying their fair share already, where with the sales tax, where it's being on the I-70 corridor and all that, all the people coming through here, no matter whether they own a piece of property or they rent or whatever, they all pay a sales tax. And people feel like a sales tax is much more fair than a real estate tax from what I've been told.
Counselor Larson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You mentioned I-70, Chief. Does the Arvada Fire Department respond to accidents on I-70?
Yes, sir, we do.
And this was an issue that we had with, that we were made aware of this summer regarding our police department and responses to accidents. Does CDOT or the state of Colorado compensate for that time?
No, we get no compensation from CDOT. They are supplying us some blockers now, and things like that to help us on the interstate as far as protecting our first responders and the accident scene.
Thank you.
Counselor Okada.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Chief Block. Also to you guys, thank you very much for doing the difficult and important work. North of Clear Creek is mostly District 4, Dan and my district. So I do hear the frequent calls for service. I live at the Ridgett Ward Station, the end of the G line over there, and we hear quite a bit of Station 52's fire engine going by. It does make me and others in the community feel a lot safer having you guys so close by and so reactive to the emergencies that exist out there. I find the 54% support for the property tax increase very encouraging. From my perspective, thinking about the diversity of funding requests that are likely to go to the ballots this year, to me, fire and rescue services are probably the ones that are most easily tied to the benefits of the property owners, as opposed to benefits that you would expect a sales tax to be able to levy there. I guess that's that's 3/4 comment, 1/4 question. But when you guys are assessing the potential of what you guys are headed to down the road, do you guys potentially see any benefit of being maybe one of a minority of groups that are asking for funding increases to ask for a property tax instead of a sales tax?
Well, the thing with the sales tax is like Jeremy was talking about, our real estate taxes have been under attack for many, many years. And it just continues to get attacked. So diversification would really go a long way as helping us. And that's the reason that we're really looking at a sales tax hard and feel like that a sales tax would probably be the best way for us to go. But like I said, the decision hadn't been made yet. That'll be up to my board. But we wouldn't be here if we wouldn't, if they hadn't cut our revenues for so many years in a row.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a quick question. West Metro kind of mentioned that they were kind of factoring in their tax rate based on the cities that they work with and that sort of thing. Is that a factor in your calculation at all?
Yes, so I think if I'm understanding your question right, we've looked, Arvada and Wheat Ridge's tax are pretty much the same. Mm-hmm. We've looked at our neighbors like Westminster. Westminster is about 1% higher. Adams County is actually almost 2% higher. So we've looked and we feel like even with our tax increase, it will still be competitive with the neighbors that we touch. And Wheat Ridge and Arvada would be pretty much on the same tax rate once again.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Any other questions from council? All right, seeing none. Chief, thank you again for being here. We appreciate the presentation and all the information. You guys did a fantastic job. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, again, and we'll thank all of our first responders for being here and our chief of police is here as well. So thank you all for all you do for our communities and we appreciate it as we go. We'll go to staff reports. City manager?
I have nothing this evening. Chief, do you got anything to need to add?
I just add one thing. I come from a different place, you know that, but our relationship with the fire department here is much stronger than where I come from. I think we're all facing a lot of the same pressures, so the personalities in this room will work pretty hard to solve them as opposed to where I come from, where you put in a room to fight for dollars against each other. And so I hope at the end of the day that we're all able to kind of show what core services require. But I'm happy to have Chief Locke and his team and Chief Metz and his team as partners. They do a great job in Wheat Ridge, and I hear nothing but compliments from our officers. Just want to point that out.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Chief. And that's fantastic. Thank you, Chiefs. All right. We will go to elected officials reports. Do we have any? Councilor Okada.
Thank you, Mayor. like to announce District 4 is going to be having a district meeting on May 23rd at 9 a.m. It's going to be at the Historical Society at Historical Park. So we encourage District 4 residents and even if you're not a District 4 resident to come talk to us and meet with us and have a good time at that conversation. We also have Councilmember Larson and I had a conversation yesterday. It felt like yesterday. Yeah, I think it is. Time is blurring. But yesterday we had a conversation with some neighbors at Garrison Street who organized a petition to express interest in preserving a plot of land that is likely to be developed. They through that expression, they wanted to meet with us, but they also wanted to give us a petition. And I'm going to be circulating this petition or giving the results of this petition to the city council members, Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Martell. I'll put them into your mailboxes so that you guys can have a chance to take a look at these. But getting this expression for that community who organized together to make this expression, I think it's important for us to read and give it consideration. That's it for me. Thank you.
Any other counselors? Counselor Snell.
I do have one thing that is kind of a fun thing happening in technically in District 2, but it is it's happening in conjunction with a District 1 business. So this is new and fun. Antique Boutique, which is a local vintage clothing store right there on 38th Avenue across from We Recyclery. They are partnering with Atomic Theater to host a fashion show at the Green on Sunday, May 10th, which is Mother's Day. Fashion show on Mother's Day. A win-win. The title of it is How the West Was Worn. So it is a fashion show highlighting Western style throughout history, I suppose, throughout fashion history. I'm very fashionable, so I know a lot about this. But in all seriousness, this is going to be a fun time. It's something new. These folks have done a lot of creative stuff. Diane, the owner of Antique Boutique, is a fantastic business owner. She just coincidentally celebrated her 1-year anniversary on 38th Avenue just recently. So put that on your calendar. Bring your mom to the fashion show on the Green at 38th on May 10th. It's 5:30 to 7 p.m. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Martell.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Jenny, for talking about the fashion show. I do want to let everyone know that Councilmember Snell and I are scheduled to have our ongoing office hours tomorrow morning. We are delaying our office hours scheduled for tomorrow to next Tuesday, in part so that I can be there to participate in person and for some other scheduling conflicts. But we will have our 2 coffee with council members in District 1 this month. They will just be the 3rd and 4th Tuesdays of the month instead of the 2nd and 4th. So they will end up being May 12th and May 19th, again at Ann's Pie Shop over by the 29th Marketplace. And we hope to see any District 1 members or really any community members at coffee, not tomorrow, but the following week. And also, apologies for being absent last week and on Zoom this week, but I've had a great 2 weeks traveling the northwest of the states. And it's really made me miss Wheat Ridge and have come back with some really great ideas from other communities that we've visited. So see y'all next week.
Thank you. We'll go to Mayor Pro Tem Holteen.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to share that I met this last week with Parks and Rec staff, Brandon Alterberg specifically, and Bike Jeffco, taking a look at the possibility of keeping the Tabor Lake Trail open to bicyclists. It's a soft surface, like crusher fine trail, and Bike Jeffco and the ADATs had asked the city to take a look at the possibility of keeping that open for bicyclists because it's a nice connection from the Clear Creek to 44th Avenue. And I just really want to thank staff for taking the request seriously and evaluating it. And at the end of the day, they decided that the trail design just wasn't safe enough to accommodate both bicyclists and pedestrians. It's narrow in places and has a couple of like pretty steep drop-offs just because of the constraints of the lake and a ditch that runs alongside it. So I just, respect the decision that was made. And I just am really grateful that our staff takes requests like this seriously. And in the conversation, we identified some other opportunities to possibly improve safety along the Clear Creek Trail for narrow places where bicyclists and pedestrians frequently have conflict. So appreciate the partnership, and it's a beautiful trail. If anyone hasn't yet strolled along it, don't ride your bike. It's really quite lovely, and you'll run into some birds, I guarantee. So that's all I got tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. We have Councilor Wood.
It seems like there were a number of things going on this past week. So early last week, I was attending the American Planning Association National Conference in Detroit, which had some interesting sessions, an orientation tour, a city not much like our own. But one session I attended in particular I thought was interesting because it was highlighting redevelopment using public-private partnerships, which is something that we've looked at. So there were some takeaways from that. If anybody's interested, I did get some things from that I thought were great. I felt very privileged this past week to attend the Spring Forum on Homelessness along with Councilor Larson and with City Manager Goff, and went in really realizing I had a lot to learn, and did learn some things, and it was really, really good. I think it was very well attended, and what I really came away with is a very concerted and coordinated effort among all who were there to look at how to make the best use of the resources that we have to attack the problem in the most effective way. Again, it was really interesting to me, and I learned a lot. The other thing that's tangential to this is that there's an advocacy group for affordable housing. It's a national group at the federal level called Up for Growth. And they follow federal legislation regarding affordable housing. And there's a bill in the works for quite some time, the Road to Housing Act. In fact, our own Representative Brittany Pedersen has been one of the proponents and actually writers, essentially, of that bill. So it's wonderful to have her doing that. It's had some trouble getting through. It's had some changes. It's had some fits and starts. As I understand it right now, and I may not know the latest, so take this with a grain of salt, it did pass the Senate with some changes that would have to go back to the House. So the rub is whether those changes could be worked out. This group, Up for Growth, is hosting a webinar this Thursday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time to talk about that. So if anybody's interested, I can send the details to them. I plan on listening to it because I'm really interested and curious. So again, it's a busy week with good things to come.
Thank you. Councilor Larson.
And thank you, Mayor. And yes, it was a fairly busy week last week. On Wednesday, I was invited to attend for the third time the Wheat Ridge High School Capstone Night for seniors. Our little group had got to see presentations by 6 high school seniors. Every one of them was interesting and showed a lot of the effort and enthusiasm that these high school seniors put into it. My compliments to Principal Lisa Mahana and all the teachers and staff because this sounds like it's going to be a tremendous year for a graduating class out of Wheat Ridge. You may have noticed the signs around the neighborhood showing where a high school senior graduating from Wheat Ridge High School lives. I know I have one just down the block from me. On Thursday, I joined Councilmember Wood and City Manager Goff at the Jefferson County Regional Forum on Homelessness. Good discussions on regional coordination and cooperation. I think all of the signs look for a positive future. Oh, and I did want to, just one last thing. In tonight's agenda package, at the very end, is a very concise and I thought very interesting summary of the former Wheat Ridge Fire Department going all the way back to 1926. If you have a minute, look all the way at the bottom of the agenda packet tonight. Is very interesting reading. This week, and I see what it is. The month of May is Military Appreciation Month. There's also Armed Forces Day on May 16th. May is also National Bicycle Month and National Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month, both of which I think are very important. May is also National Asparagus Month, which I'm going to totally ignore. And then, I'm hoping that by next year, we will have something maybe like a National Sunburn Awareness Month. And I'll be the first in line to say, wear sunscreen if you're going to be outside. And that is it for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other? All right, fantastic. I came strolling into Mountain Milk last week to meet with one of the firefighters, and there was City Manager Goff and Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen volunteering me for a new project, which I was happy to oblige. Pretty awesome program that those two came up with, so I'm not going to take credit for it, but I am going to make sure it's implemented very well, I hope. This is the Community Champion Award Program. So this is pretty cool. I get to work with the staff, and I'll hold up the little flyer here that Mr. Goff gave me, but we're looking for nominations to be nominated by the 15th of the month for the following month to be awarded. But these are people who kind of reflect the best of Wheat Ridge. So these are the leaders, innovators, people who lead with kindness, people who are out there volunteering their time. So I think all of us just thought of about 5 different people that we could nominate. But so we'll be looking for nominations coming up for the 15th of this month, and we'll recognize them coming up in June. But some of the recognition will be, they'll be invited to the city council meeting for recognition. They'll get a certificate as well as one of the really cool Wheat Ridge Challenge coins that we have. They'll be featured on the website and our social media. And if they're interested, they'll get some media recognition as well. So hopefully we'll have the community nominating, and will that be on a website?
Be on the website tomorrow.
Okay, and that'll be on the website tomorrow. So fantastic. Councilor Ohm, did you have a question?
No, just, I haven't handed one.
Oh, no. So absolutely. So take a look at that. That'll be on the website, and I'm sure you'll see that on social media as well. So get those nominations in as soon as you can. Go ahead, Councilor Ohm.
I'll be quick. Thank you, Councilmember Larson, for Capstone Night. I almost forgot. My son had a Capstone Night, and I went and attended, and he hadn't talked to me about it. I was really surprised what the subject was, but it was about mental health and parks, and how spending time in parks really helps with mental health, and he did some studies on it. And so I look back, you know, when he was a kid, and I used to take him and my daughter to Prospect Park all the time, walking through, and, you know, when we first get to that park, you know, maybe the tensions were a little high, you know, but after I'd let him run around for 10, 15 minutes, you know, through all the trails, everybody just kind of calmed down, and they take it all in. And so that's definitely one of our favorite parks to walk through. And I thought he did. I was really proud of him. So just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anything else to come for council tonight? We have nothing else tonight. It is May 4th, so go watch one of the many Star Wars TV shows or movies, maybe. If you're not a fan of Star Wars, watch a Star Trek movie or something like that. That'll be more fun. But we will be back here next Monday for a city council meeting. We have a lot of proclamations and a bunch of stuff going on that night, so hopefully you'll all be here. Thank you very much. Be safe, and if you can find it, buy it in Wheat Ridge.